So remember a while back when I made this video? Well, I might have been onto something. So Dragon's Dogma 2 had a really bizarre lead up to release, and before anyone says anything, I don't want to say that I saw all of this coming, because I'll admit the stuff that I was complaining about in this video, my main 3 points in that video, only one of them is one of the points that people are yelling about today, and that's game optimization. I don't want to say that I predicted this. I don't want to act like Nostradamus, but I'm just saying, the writing was on the wall, and we all should have been on board for this one. Just to recap, Dragon's Dogma 2 gets a bunch of really weird, obscure pieces of bad news throughout the last few months that are largely overshadowed by the actual game and the actual gameplay that Capcom has been pushing out, which, here's the fun part, looks phenomenal. I was so excited for this game, despite all of the nonsense that I was hearing leading up to launch. Nonsense like one save file that has autosaves, meaning you can't have more than one character taking more than one path at the same time. I thought that was a weird move. I also wasn't stoked with the fact that the console version was believed to be capped at 30 frames per second at the time, and the PC version had a whole bunch of technical alarm bells blaring on the Steam page, especially since the recommended specs on the Steam page told you to target 30 frames per second. That wasn't a good sign at all. And then leading up to release too, there was that one quote from the director said that it would be running unlocked. Like there would be an unlocked frame rate on console, but it would still only hover around 30 frames per second. That was probably the biggest alarm bell that this game was a complete fucking mess on a technical side. But like most people, I think, I was honestly willing to look past all this because the game looked fucking awesome. The game looked so good. And from everything that I've heard and all the early reviews that I've watched, when the game is working properly, it is awesome. And when Capcom isn't trying to literally vacuum gold coins out of your pocket with this giant list of day one microtransactions, I'm sorry, what? If it were 5 years ago, I'd say you could buy a whole new game for the amount of microtransactions there are in this game, but no, games must be more expensive nowadays because there's just so much content in these games and there's so much great stuff in these games. We gotta bump up the base price of these games because there's just so much stuff in there. Oh, by the way, there's still another $50 worth of stuff that we didn't give you. What? And that was a little facetious. That was a little facetious of me because look at this list of microtransactions. Look at the list of stuff that's available. I've seen some people defend this by saying they're all time savers. All the stuff in here is just optional stuff that you can get in-game and that you don't have to buy it, and that the game is totally completable without them. Well then, dear viewer, why are they here? Genuinely, why is this stuff in the game if you don't need it and you already paid $70 or more for it? And the stuff that they're charging for is like, come on guys, like okay, here's the thing. If you absolutely must put microtransactions in a single player game, it should either be inconsequentially cosmetic or it should be substantial additions to the game, stuff that is like stepping stones to a DLC. What it should not be is paying for fast travel. I'm sorry, paying real life dollars to use the fast travel system. There is now an actual real-life public transit system in a video game that doesn't actually take you anywhere. Isn't that so great? Isn't that so fun? And what's that? In this single-player RPG, you also pay real-life dollars to change the appearance of your character? Oh my goodness, is this Fortnite? Look, I'm probably a little more upset about this than I should be. And maybe I'm just a little too close to the situation because this last video I made about Dragon's Dogma 2 got destroyed and now I feel weirdly vindicated. It's like that one clip from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Vindication!
But also, the point I'm trying to get at here, what I'm really trying to get at here is that mid-2010s Capcom is like full on back. They made their return. Mid-2010s Capcom is here to stay, apparently. And yeah, I blame Capcom for all of this. I don't blame the developers for this, I blame the publishers for this. I don't blame the developing side of Capcom for this, I blame the business side of Capcom for this, and the publishing side of Capcom for this. Because you really think the developers didn't want more time to polish the optimization? Do you really think the developers wanted to shove a bunch of actual paid money options for this game? Do you think they're really the ones that made that call, or do you think that was the publishing side? So I want to make it clear that when I say Capcom ruined this game, I'm saying the suits at Capcom ruined this, because again, the game itself looks awesome. I want to play this, but I'm not contributing to this until at least some of it is fixed. At the time that I'm making this video, we're sitting at a 40% approval rating on Steam. And I saw this screenshot of a Steam review going around. The name is cut off. I wish I could give proper credit here, but it lists the 5 big things wrong with the game. 1. Optimization. Day 1 optimization is atrocious. I have a beast of a rig and barely hold 60 FPS on a 1080p monitor. Huge frame dips in big cities and certain areas, random stutters and crashes. 2. DRM de novo is built in, which causes terrible performance issues and is all around unwanted by every gamer ever. 3. Microtransactions. Already paid $90 Canadian for the game, and they want you to pay just to change your appearance. 4. Pay-to-win items in the store on a single-player game that focuses on exploration and skill leveling. Make that make sense. 5. Unable to start a new character. Your save is stored through the server, which is a disgrace to the consumer, meaning once you beat the game, there is no starting a new playthrough at all. This needs to be fixed. Consensus. Overall, for the price they are asking for the content you get, this is 100% not worth the price. Capcom has failed their consumers miserably, and the fact they think they can get away with it is disgusting. We must not allow these greedy devs to ruin games like this. They took what could have been a fantastic game and smeared it in the dirt. And apparently things got down to mostly negative. It's up to mixed now, so it really just remains to be seen how much of an impact this actually has. It's the top selling game on Steam right now too, so it's not like Capcom's hurting from this. And that right there is the problem. I may be a little too cautious about this. As someone who really got into gaming during the 360 era, I am very familiar with what Capcom likes to do once people like them. And I've also heard some people say that stuff like this, the stuff that's in Dragon's Dogma 2, is not, out of the ordinary for Capcom. That every Capcom game has weird little time saver microtransactions, that they have little pieces of little DLC on day 1. And yes, you are right. But Dragon's Dogma 2 is different because unlike games like Devil May Cry or Resident Evil, which have stuff like this, and it doesn't make it okay in those games either, by the way, but the reason it's more offensive here is because Dragon's Dogma 2 is an open world RPG with a combat loop and gameplay loop literally based around organic exploration and organic leveling, organic experiences with the world. The fact that you can pay to bypass parts of that or to speed up parts of that fundamentally goes against what this game is. Paying for power and unlock XP in games like Devil May Cry, yeah, it's stupid. It's one of the dumbest things that Capcom has ever done, but it's still not as dumb as this. This is worse, and on top of the fact that this is just fundamentally worse, we're talking about a game that cannot hold 30 frames per second to save its life, apparently not even on the PC. In several YouTube reviews that I've watched, I've heard PC players with pretty beastly rigs say that they hold around 60 frames per second, but then as soon as they come to like certain high pressure areas or high volume areas, it tanks down to 30 or lower. That is unacceptable in a modern PC game, especially a modern PC game that puts so much effort into monetizing aspects of it that should not be monetized. That's why this is different. And if you are a big fan of the first game and you're going to be more forgiving of the second game because of your love for the first game, honestly, I get it. I totally get it. I don't want to just shove my whole arm down your throat and rip your spine out for liking Dragon's Dogma before we did, or for being interested in this series before the sequel. I know it's really obnoxious to have someone outside your community come in and start criticizing something in your community when that thing that they're criticizing is something that was there when you became a fan of the game or of the IP. I get that this can be very obnoxious to hear, and I'm really trying to be even-handed as much as I can. But the way things are, this is fucking embarrassing. This is fucking embarrassing. This is fucking insulting do not buy Dragon's Dogma 2 until one of a handful of things, or a handful of this handful of things, happens. I'm not giving this game my money, and neither should you, until the de novo is removed, the optimization is fixed, the microtransactions are either removed or overhauled in some way, because I get it. I get that by decree of Capcom, you have to have some kind of microtransactions in this game. But this is fucking stupid. God, and I hate seeing what looks to be a great piece of art be held back in its potential audience. Dragon's Dogma 2 looked like it could have been a Game of the Year thing. It still could be a Game of the Year thing. I don't know. But there are so many people who are not going to play this game, and there are so many people who are going to play this game and whose experience is going to be hindered by stuff like this. And Capcom just doesn't seem to care anymore, because we gave them a bunch of good reviews and a bunch of money for the last few years, and now they've become complacent once again, and early 2010s Capcom now seems to be swinging, and you just hate to see it. God damn it, Toodles.